Hey everybody, Nick here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video I want to talk about ways in which this psychopathic cult is able to control the human race. Now, it may be something that is not a part of the matrix itself, the design of this place. If you really think about it, if you go down the rabbit hole, yes, it is something that can exist here, right? But it is created from the mind of a human being, which may or may not have been planted there, may have been manipulated into doing. But I'm going to get into details as to what I mean. Now, if you look at the history, what we call history of humanity, many of the things have been in place just to control us. Everyone wonders why they have to work, why you have to pay bills, why this and that. Why is it such an intricate system? A lot of it is created in order to give the illusion that there's organization. There's things are being well organized. Like you get a health card, you get a social insurance number, or all those things. In order to function in a society. Now, I'm not here to say that there's definitely a better way to live. I think there's a better way, but I'm not here to to talk about exactly the best way in which we could live in this realm. Because, first of all, it is pretty shitty here, okay? A lot of people will say, well, there is some beauty, there's things that are nice. Of course, no one's denying that. But let's come back to what I was saying. Now, they create a lot of things in order to trap us in the system. It's just so easy to spot, and a lot of people can't see it. Some people can, but they go along with it because they think they have no choice. You got to work, got to go to, secondary education and all these things. And we're forced into education because that's the way that this whole thing runs, okay? Now, yes, I know the alternatives. Don't go to education, don't go this and that, and you don't get a degree, and then you can't be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But that's just what we've been taught to believe is the best way and the only way. And if you don't do that, you're a nobody. I've heard of many people who've never gone to post-secondary and things like that, and have been successful and found other ways in which to make a living in this place and able to survive. So that's not the be all end all. But like I said, the SIN card, social insurance, health card, driver's license, and I'm not saying that people should be able to drive without a driver's license. I'm just simply saying there are parameters in this place that they keep us in. Driver's license would probably not the best example, because I think in order to drive around and stuff, you need to know if the person's able to do it, right? But technology has been one of those things that they have been able to advance over the many decades. And we're only getting to the cusp of the total control through AI, through computer systems, through, facial recognition. I heard that they're going to start doing age identifying the person's age online in order to use certain websites or the internet as a whole. I may talk about that in another video specifically, but that is definitely another way to control us and keep us just like a herd, of animals. And it keeps getting more and more intricate, the system. We all have bank accounts, we all have this and that, and they all have information on us. There's files on us. Everything is categorized, everything is organized, everything is kept on databases. And before computers were a thing, they would have files, okay? They would file it manually, physically, on paper. And it's just more and more ways. The more the system gets intricate and complex, the more they're able to control us. It's just you if you cannot see that by now, you're a lost case, you're a lost cause, okay? And there aren't going to be people that can see it because, like I mentioned in a recent video, everyone's so distracted. Everyone is so worried about having to make a living, having to survive. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, because unfortunately we have to play the game, okay? Otherwise you end up on the street, or you end up starving, and it's really a sick game, a vicious cycle that we're stuck in. None of us are really free, not in the system, not in this matrix. And I often think to myself, is there true freedom? And I really do think there is. I don't think that we can be held here, and I mean spiritually, if you're really strong enough. But that's, I've talked about that before. I learned that from other channels, a few specific ones. So it's not my idea. I have not been able to. I would never have gotten to where I'm at when I'm thinking, able to think more outside the box, think more deep, in this thing we call life, without the help of other channels or other thinkers, other people who have come up with great ideas, great models, great things. And I would never. I'm not here to claim that they're my models. They're not my ideas, but I do have adopted them in my own life in order to see clearer, much clearer. So I mean, a lot of people just cannot see through all the bullshit, how the system just keeps getting more and more, how would I say, tighter and restricted or restrictive, in order to not allow us to think outside the box, not allow a person, the average person, to even remotely question things. They go hand in hand. These complex systems, which forces you to have to go along with the system, believe that you need a mortgage, believe that you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a house, which these days is completely impossible for the average person, specifically in Canada. Maybe the US too, but I think Canada is one of the worst when it comes to the housing market. It's just way out of reach, and the average job doesn't pay nowhere near enough. Everything's just out of whack, but it's meant to be that way. And I'm not here to bitch and complain. I'm just simply calling it for what I see, telling you guys that not to feel despair or be sad for the fact of that, but just be aware. I don't know that it's going to change. I highly doubt it, because I talked about another topic, how society is crumbling and getting worse. Everything degrades here. It's just, if you look around, everything is falling apart, degrades one way or another at some point or another. It doesn't matter what you do. Yeah, you can replace certain fucking things and replace items and paint over, a chipped wall or whatever it may be, and it'll look new again. But really, it's just going to start degrading again. Everything is constantly degrading. It's interesting how the design of this place was designed that way. I always find that interesting, that it's not like designed to last forever. Like, if let's just theorize, if we were brought here and we don't have bodies that degrade and age and then fall apart and whatnot, wouldn't it make more sense for whoever's controlling this place to have it like that? I'm not sure. I'm just simply throwing that out there, because then they would be able to use the suffering on and on, like over and over again. Like, it's a non-stop suffering machine, because this place is built to suffer. But anyways, so I think that the technology is definitely mainly used against us. There are certain things that are kind of cool with technology. I'm not refuting that. There are certain technologies that do make life more comfortable, absolutely. But all in all, it's probably more so just to distract us and think that they're advancing technologies just to make life better. They have to sell these ideas in order for us to accept them. Because if they were to have most people realizing that we're a frog in slow boiling water, they'd have a problem on their hands. It's a no-brainer there. Whoever's running the show behind the curtain would have a real problem. Okay, so that's the way it goes here. We have credit cards, we have IDs and things like that to keep us. Like, I understand they have to keep tabs. If there were good people behind the scenes, they'd have to keep tabs because there's evil people, and we have to be able to get the bad people. But there's a trade-off. You lose your freedom, you lose your privacy. Like I said in many videos before, if good people, and there are good people in law enforcement and the judicial system and things like that, but unfortunately they are also manipulated from the top. And I mean, you saw it a few years ago how easily they all lockstepped into ushering control over where we move, what we can do, what we can say, and that still goes on. Don't kid yourself. That still goes on, but it's just very disheartening. But also I realize that the technology is just another means of control, and the more complex the system gets, the more easy it is to control us. Soon it's going to be digital currency and social credit systems. That is on its way. I've talked about it before. And then one thing that I haven't heard of, I heard of the age identifier for the internet. I'm not sure if I don't exactly remember if it's like through YouTube or in general to use the internet, but they will do that as well. They're gonna want to know who is logged on, who is online. I mean, I'm sure they can figure it out anyways, but they're gonna make it easier for themselves. It's just going to be very, very easy. I can't stand facial recognition as well. I remember one time I was flying from somewhere in Texas a couple years ago to Canada, and to board they announced that they're going to be using facial recognition instead of actually like looking at the passport and looking at the person. You'd have to look into the computer, the camera, or whatever, and it would go green if it matched the system. And it's just, I don't know. I'd say if there weren't evil fucking pieces of shit running this place who are just evil as hell, I could see that system being okay. But then again, if this place was a paradise and kind of a heaven, we wouldn't need these systems in the first place. Okay, we wouldn't need these systems to even be running, because we wouldn't have to be worrying about who's doing what. And it's an interesting existence for sure. But let me know what you think about the how they use this very complex system that they've built over the course of, I would say the better part of 50 plus years, maybe, since IBM started making computers to track. No, I think it was the Jews they used or something. The Nazis used IBM computers. I can't remember if it was like a compilation of people and keeping track of people. I think it was like a filing system, but don't quote me on that one. So yeah, let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching, or in this case, listening. And we'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye for now.